Hey, what's up, Parker?
Hey there, Omar. Oh, hey, what's
What's up, Watson?
Good afternoon, Parker and Omar.
Hey there, everyone. Welcome to What's Up, Watson. My name is Parker Merritt.
And I'm Omar Fareed. For those of you tuning in for the first time, Parker and I are data and AI technical specialists. This means that our primary focus is bringing the right data science solutions to the area of your business where we make the most impact.
Last week, we touched on some of the different areas where artificial intelligence is completely transforming the way enterprises work.
And this week, we're going to be diving into one of those topics, conversational AI.
That's right, IBM's premier conversational AI platform has earned its stripes in literally thousands of our clients' use cases. Omar, why don't you kick it off by telling us about an internal use case?
Sure thing. If you're eager to get started with leveraging conversational AI into your organization, a great place to start is with empowering the people that make your organization great, your employees. As we've mentioned in our first episode, leveraging AI isn't just about having one large initiative. It's about setting your organization up to continuously approach business problems, successfully tackling them with AI, and then quickly scaling what works across the enterprise, all while learning from the experience to reapply to other business problems in AI initiatives. Having a strong background in this is what will set organizations that are AI ready for the future apart from the ones that aren't. For example, when it comes to successfully applying AI to increase revenue or customer satisfaction, it's going to be the companies that have already built a successful practice enabling their employees internally through AI that will thrive in doing so for their external customers. That being said, let's dive into a great example of an internal conversational AI use case to get you started. When selecting an internal AI use case, what you want to target is an area of your business where you can simultaneously decrease costs, increase efficiency, all while empowering the members of your organization to do more, and also gain the ability to analyze the results and overall impact of the AI initiative. And this is exactly what can be achieved through targeting the IT department with an IT help desk virtual agent powered by Watson. As an organization that values efficiency, the last thing you want is your employees bogged down with technical difficulties, like their laptop glitching, trouble with internet or VPN connections, email access, printers, or most commonly, password issues, which according to recent studies can take up to 50% of IT support calls. And with today's pandemic and remote work, this is all more relevant than ever. Luckily, with Watson Assistant here to save the day, conversational AI can be leveraged to quickly handle these repetitive issues, enabling your employees to do their best work. With minimal effort and no programming, Watson can be trained to use natural language to understand the requests of your employees in deflecting common FAQs, solving their problems, and even creating support tickets. This doesn't just help the employees with the IT issues, but will simultaneously be a huge asset to the team of IT specialists handling these problems as well. The call deflection will greatly free up their hands to bring complete focus towards higher impact issues. Having a successful internal implementation of this will also strengthen your organization's ability to apply AI to similar external use cases that drive revenue and increase customer satisfaction. For example, the Smart Call Center, which is a use case that we'll cover later in this episode. Lastly, with Watson Assistant, the data that has been collected, such as chat logs, can be leveraged to automatically and continuously improve Watson's performance. This means the more it's utilized, the smarter it becomes. Additionally, Watson Assistant includes a built-in analytics dashboard that showcases every conversation it's had, as well as insights into which intents were most common and at what time. This can be critical in not only determining what were the most common IT issues experienced by your employees, but also during what time, and from which department. This will help your IT department quickly narrow down on issues and be proactive in their approach. With Watson's quick and easy API integrations, this information can be used to further improve its performance by leveraging capabilities such as sentiment analysis to determine the emotion around the interaction, as well as AI search to leverage insight from relevant documents and unstructured data.
That's a really great use case, Omar. Given the explosion of remote work over the past year, it's easy to see why businesses are looking to automate their most common IT-related tasks and queries. From VPNs to virtual meetings, there's been a ton of new challenges for enterprises adapting to these new ways of working. But not all conversational AI trends are quite this fresh. There's a ton of HR-related use cases that have been under development for years now. And this makes this application especially interesting for our clients, because now we have some hard data about the results of these experiments. And the results are very promising. Our clients are now taking these solutions from experimentation to production, and they're saving millions of dollars a year. Not to mention, they're improving the experience of every employee. Business starts and ends with your people. Recruiting, training, and retaining your top talent should be one of the top priorities at any company. And here's the good news. Conversational AI is effective in almost all of these areas. A 2018 study by the IBM Smarter Workforce Institute found that there were 7 key benefits of AI in HR. Enhancing candidate experience in the hiring process by providing better job matching and access to information. Enabling a more effective recruitment process, accelerating how quickly you can identify and hire quality candidates. Boosting motivation and improving the overall employee experience. Improving transparency and decision making, allowing the organization to stay more aligned. Personalized learning for every employee, enabling more rapid skill acquisition. Democratizing career development and providing clarity about internal job opportunities. And offering 24/7 employee support, improving worker satisfaction and productivity. Now, obviously, we've seen a lot of these benefits materialize when we implement conversational AI in our clients' own businesses, but that wasn't the first step. When we first developed these capabilities, we wanted to put them to the test right here at IBM internally. With these 7 key principles in mind, IBM used conversational AI to completely transform our own HR functions. In the first year alone, we accrued over $107 million worth of savings and benefits, and by now that amount is well over $300 million. Naturally, we were inspired by this resounding success at home, and since then, we've used these innovative HR capabilities in over 1,000 other projects, both internally and with our clients.
Congratulations! Now that you've successfully leveraged conversational AI internally to enhance your organization, it's time to bring this strength to get ahead of your competitors by directly impacting your organization's external operations. Luckily with Watson Assistant, you don't have to look too far to figure out where to start. You can start with what you already have, and what every organization has is a website, and chances are you also have a mobile application and social media page as well. There's a variety of reasons organizations have a website, mobile app, and social media page, and that's because regardless of if you're a B2C or B2B business, that is where your current and future customers exist. The purpose of these mediums is to digitally provide typically information about your organization as well as some form of self-service. This makes a perfect opportunity to leverage conversational AI to not only interact with end users, but also gather continuous insights from engagements that can be used to build increasingly personal relationships between your business and your customers. Customers might want to know more about your products and services, billing and pricing information, have inquiries about orders and shipping, or they might simply need some form of self-service. Your customers are all over the world and have needs and inquiries at different times. Luckily with Watson Assistant, you'll be able to provide tailored information to the right customers at the right time 24/7. This is achieved through Watson's ability to seamlessly integrate directly into your website, social media page, or already existing applications such as mobile apps or Slack, saving you the hassle to create something completely from scratch. This allows you and your end users to continue to use the digital mediums you already are familiar with, while gaining the enhanced level of support and self-service. What this achieves goes beyond reducing churn. This also offers you the opportunity to gain valuable insights on these interactions that would otherwise be lost, and leverage these insights towards areas of your business such as sales, marketing, and inventory management.
Now, a main focus at IBM has not only been artificial intelligence, but also augmented intelligence. Essentially, we're not only building tools for automating repetitive work, we're also building solutions for adding value to person-to-person interactions. For example, one of the most popular applications of Watson Assistant is as a real-time call center advisor. Now, there will likely always be some issues that a human needs to handle, but that doesn't mean AI can't help. As your customer service agent is on the phone with a client, Watson will listen in for keywords and familiar topics, serving up helpful tips and resources as your customer asks questions. This frees up your customer service agent from hours of looking for documentation, makes them feel more confident in their problem-solving abilities, and improves the experience of everybody who calls in. Another cool benefit of complementing customer care with Watson Assistant is the ability to integrate with our flexible suite of Watson APIs. With a few tweaks, Watson will not only be able to provide our customer service agent with relevant resources and information, it will also be able to detect sentiment and emotion, offering personalized recommendations for retention strategies and escalation procedures the moment it detects that your customer is seeming dissatisfied. Here's another thing. Right off the bat, when I talk about this kind of chatbot, people tend to assume that the only option available to them is the standard text-based chat window. But with Watson Assistant, this is not the case. Watson was architected from the ground up to have omni-channel capabilities, meaning that when you build a dialogue skill, you can easily plug it into any communication channel. In addition to seamless integration with Slack, Facebook Messenger, or Intercom, customers also have access to Wavy, Watson Assistant for voice interaction. This capability complements your existing AI investments by allowing you to bring Watson's conversational skills to your company's public or private phone system. Now, we've had clients from all kinds of different industries put these capabilities to the test. Banco Bradesco, one of the biggest banks in Brazil, used Watson Assistant to boost their resolution metrics, achieving over 95% accuracy. One of our partners in the telecom space, CenturyLink, was able to reduce their call center costs by as much as $9 million. And finally, Regions, a major bank holding company and financial institution, used Watson Assistant to accelerate agent onboarding, speeding things up by as much as 40%. So, as you can see, injecting intelligence into your call center really is one of the most game-changing applications of conversational AI.
That's a very interesting use case, and it's really cool to see how many different ways companies can make use of conversational AI technologies, both inside and out. So now, I'm really excited to get into our expert interview today, but I do want to quickly touch on how exactly conversational AI operates. So Parker, here's my challenge to you. Can you explain Watson Assistant in just 1 minute?
Alright, let's do it. How Watson Assistant works in under a minute. So, in order to build a chatbot in Watson Assistant, you're going to need 3 things: intents, entities, and dialogue. Intents represent user intentions, or things they may be trying to accomplish by interacting with your bot. Maybe they're looking for product warranty information, or they're trying to find out your store hours. And keep in mind, there's a million different ways to phrase any of these questions, but thanks to Watson's machine learning models, your bot will be able to recognize these utterances and group them into categories, aka our intents. Next, we have entities, which represent more specific pieces of context with these intents. So this allows your bot to extract useful data and use it to meet your user's objectives. So in our product warranty example, maybe you have an entity called products, and this can have a variety of different values, maybe product names or model numbers, and this allows your bot to narrow down exactly what it is your user is looking for. Finally, it all comes together in dialogue. And in Watson Assistant, this takes the form of a graphical, drag and drop builder interface. So whether you're a programmer or a business user, you can map out conversational flows and deploy them into production. And that's how Watson Assistant works in under a minute. Omar, take it away to our interview.
All right, thank you, Parker. So today we have a special guest. He's actually a technical leader for Watson Data and AI within IBM, and he's also the lead solution architect for our very popular case study with Autodesk. And his name is Doug Ayers. Doug, we're really happy to have you today.
Thanks, Omar. Happy to be here.
Okay, so Doug, I have to ask, out of all the areas that an organization can invest in, how does an organization know when it's time to get started with the conversational AI specifically?
Well, I guess if I wanted to be a bit glib or flippant, I mean, I would say, if they haven't started already, it's probably already time. Artificial intelligence and AI in general is one of those, big technologies that comes around every now and then. Companies are aware of it. They know that it's going to fundamentally change the way that they do business. And so pretty much all of them are making decisions about when they want to jump on the train, as it were. Do they want to try to get on early, get some competitive advantage? I would say to some extent that ship has sailed to a certain extent. Companies are pretty well aware. Companies have gotten started. And then then it becomes a question of not falling too far behind. So I would say, now is a good time. And in particular, since we're going to be talking about conversational AI today, that's actually a pretty good place to get started. If you haven't done anything yet in your organization with artificial intelligence, conversational AI offers some advantages. First of all, you don't necessarily need a ton of data scientists or AI expertise to get started, because a lot of the natural language capabilities that you need are built into the platforms. And the other thing I would say is that there's quite a number of good, widely applicable use cases that offer a pretty good return on investment. So for the companies that are starting or just getting started in AI, many of those are getting started with the conversational kinds of use cases or applications.
Okay, that makes sense. So then with companies that are looking to get started, or maybe have already started, or maybe they just don't know exactly where to start, what exactly are some building blocks that they would need to have to then, start that initiative with conversational AI?
Well, I would say probably the most important thing initially is to find a good use case. Again, what we're talking about here is just getting started. So you probably don't want to do something that's, revolutionary or transformational just, with your first initial project. But at the same time, it's still, you want to find something that offers some tangible value, some tangible ROI. And just in general on that, like conversational AI is about automating or enabling self-care or those kinds of things. But I would say that it's probably most important, to pick a use case that's meaningful. As far as like building blocks or getting started, you're going to have to make some decisions. First of all, do you want to have an internal focus or an external focus with your initial project? If it's internal, that means that the people using the assistant that the natural language assistant that you're going to be creating are going to be employees. And what we see there as far as probably the most common applications of that for internal use cases would be something like an IT help desk, or maybe human resources or an HR assistant. Now, if you want to do something external, typically companies that are doing that want to create something that's going to transform the customer experience, something that they feel will be differentiating. And so that also can be in a support context, or it might be something like a shopping concierge, a natural language assistant that would help you find information about products and so forth. So that's one decision you'd have to make. You want to start thinking about what channels you want to introduce. Companies interact with their customers and employees in a lot of different ways. Websites, mobile applications, call centers, voice. And so you want to take a look at that and start deciding where you would introduce this new technology. And I would say, just generally speaking, for the companies that are getting started, most of them are doing some kind of web chat assistant for the conversational AI to get started. It just tends to be, sort of the frankly easiest place to get started, least disruptive, and there's a number of advantages to that. So most folks are probably starting with the web, but you do need to think about what channels you want to support. Now, in terms of the building blocks itself, like what you can do to get ready, I would say probably the biggest thing that you could do that would be advantageous is to know how things work today, right? So particularly, let's just say, for example, we are going to talk about a support context. You should be aware, what are the top 5 or the top 10 call drivers? What are my people actually spending time doing today? You want to know that. And as you look at those top call drivers, then you have to start making assessments. Well, which of those are the high volume, relatively low complexity tasks that are going to be very, very good candidates for automation? And those are the ones that you're going to want to look for. So you're going to want to, understand that and have that information. And not all companies have that readily available. So those are some of the things that you can do just at the outset of the project to figure out how you want to get started.
Okay, got it. So let's just say we have a company that has their building blocks, maybe they've decided on their use case, but in general, for companies that are in that position, what are some of the biggest obstacles that an organization can face when it comes to adopting conversational AI?
Well, one thing I guess I would say is they can run into problems if they're thinking of it strictly in terms of a technical exercise or a technical problem in a way that's disconnected from the business context. I see that a lot of companies, or I work with a lot of companies that really get into, go down a path of just a purely technical kind of evaluation. And so they're very focused on, specific capabilities, they're queuing up proofs of concept, they're doing vendor comparisons and things like this, all of which have a place. And definitely you need to take a look at those aspects when you're choosing and implementing your technology. But a lot of times, those are the kinds of projects that might be spun off in a center of excellence, or they might be, part of a technical innovation team. You want to make sure that you've identified a specific business problem with the use case that's meaningful to somebody in the business, and that you have some well-defined KPIs or metrics that's going to have an impact. I would say that there's, and this might not be intuitive, but sometimes companies get hung up on how they think the technology should work, right? And so particularly like if we're talking about conversational AI, for example, they might think, well, this AI system should just be able to read all my documents, like analyze them, be able to summarize them in its own words, and to do kind of like a natural language speech synthesis as an example. Or sometimes they don't expect that there would be any kind of configuration of the dialogue in any sense, right? That this AI system will be just completely able to have an ad hoc conversation dynamically as a person would. Now, there are ways where you can have those kinds of capabilities, but I would say sometimes they focus on how they think it will work and not necessarily on how the technology does work and what it can do to solve these kinds of problems. So I would just say, as you pick your use case, you should really be focused, again, kind of coming back to the business context. What does it need to be able to do to achieve the business result that I want, and not necessarily have some preconceived expectations about how you think the technology should work. Particularly when companies are going down just a purely technical exercise, like they can be overly concerned about those kinds of things. So that's one thing. And then the other thing I would say, just in terms of obstacles as well, there is a perception that you need to have, let's say, an army of data scientists or developers on your staff. AI is a new technology. There are some specialized skills that you would want in your organization to be able to have, a fully implemented strategy. But particularly with conversational AI, as I mentioned, the platforms and the tools that are out there, they have a lot of the natural language processing capabilities, the natural language understanding capabilities built in, and you don't necessarily need to have the whole army of data scientists at your disposal. In fact, I would say it's much, much more important in terms of the success of the project to have participation of the subject matter experts. That actually turns out to be a much more critical factor in terms of the success of the project.
Okay, no, that makes a lot of sense. I'm really glad that you added that. So now that you've kind of highlighted some of these obstacles that companies face regarding implementing conversational AI, now how do they overcome these obstacles?
Well, I guess if you kind of go, if we think back on some of the things that I called out as obstacles, how you overcome them is fairly straightforward. It's not just a technical exercise. So how do you fix that? You just make sure that you're well aligned with the business, that you establish some specific business related metrics that's going to drive your project in terms of what it's going to be able to do and in terms of how you're going to measure success. You want to get sponsorship and participation from the business. Find out who owns the business problem. If it's, let's say it's support, like who owns the customer care mission. As IT specialists and IT teams, those are our customers anyway. We're working with those customers. But in terms of these projects, you want to make sure that you have alignment in terms of priority and have kind of buy-in in that. So you want to get sponsorship and you want to get participation. Because as I mentioned, it is going to be important to have your subject matter experts that know how things work today, so that you're going to be able to incorporate that in the build, the configuration of the thing that you're putting in place. You want to focus on what the technology can do and what it needs to be able to do, and not, again, how you think it should work. So again, if you're looking at conversational AI, that means, am I using a tool? Am I using a platform that is going to let me have a human-like conversation with my customers or with my employees? Does it respond gracefully to questions that it hasn't been trained to answer? Can it recognize what questions people are asking? Can it extract or recognize or understand the key bits of information that you need? For example, if I were making an appointment, does it know, what date that I want, or what time, or the number of people in my party, or whatever it may be? All of those natural or all of those capabilities of the natural language processing, you want to focus on the technology in the context of your particular use case and what's going to be important. And as I mentioned, as you look at the technology, and I would say, for companies out there, this is one of the ways that I think IBM has really differentiated themselves, and where we've put a lot of effort is in making sure that our platform and our tools are enabling non-data scientists to be a part of this process. Having tools that let these subject matter experts configure and extend and design the assistant that's being put in place. So look at those capabilities in the platform itself, and don't feel that you need to have an army of technical specialists in order to make it successful.
Right, I think I hit it on the nail. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that you need to have like years of AI research, or you need to have like a huge team of PhDs, from AI working on your projects. But I think it's also about, like you mentioned, like enabling all of your employees to kind of start working with AI and adding value to the organization.
Yeah, that's true. And I would say just just as we're conversing about it here, it's not to minimize those skills, and you may run into them, but I mean, AI is a pretty broad spectrum, right? And so there's other aspects of AI. I want to optimize my systems. I want to make predictions. I want to make decisions. And in those cases, you may have a very specific context where you're going to have to build an algorithm or a model that's very specific to the kind of business that you're doing or the decision that you want to make. And that's where your data science experts are going to be engaged. But again, today we're talking primarily around the conversational AI, and it's just in my experience that dependency is much, much less for the types of projects that we're talking about.
Oh, definitely. So then now that we've kind of touched upon selecting a use case and then knowing what your obstacles are and then overcoming them, for organizations that are kind of continuing to move forward in their journey towards AI, how do they continuously determine and prioritize what their future use cases are going to be and what their approaches will be for that?
When you're looking at a particular project, obviously the focus kind of narrows down. You're doing something very specific, right? You're dealing with particular teams, particular functions. When we're talking about new use cases and future use cases and where we see the most value, it's a bit different, right? That's where you want to broaden the aperture. And so that's where you want to have, input and communication and collaboration from different parts of your organization. So within your organization, if one thing that you want to have, and if you have as a project team, right, if you're working on some AI things, you want to evangelize that to a certain extent, right? If within your organization, people have a basic awareness of what AI is and the kinds of things that it can do and what tools are out there, just having that awareness generally stimulates a lot of ideas. And people start to think about, how could I apply this in finance? How could I apply this in sales? How could I apply this in marketing? Maybe I want to have some conversational AI. Maybe I need to have some, predictive analytics or whatever it may be. And so that's why I said when you have that broad aperture, there ideally can be some process in place where these teams get together. And I mean, as a vendor, as somebody with IBM, I go in and I work with customers in this context. And I might facilitate, for example, a use case discovery workshop where we get people from across the organization. And, the first thing that we'll do is really just brainstorm the ideas. And there's really no bad ideas. You just want to kind of get them on the board. And then once you've done that, then it's really a process of like analyzing and vetting those ideas. And without being too detailed in the process itself, essentially what you want to do is you want to get a list of candidate projects that you might have, and then you prioritize them. And the way that you prioritize them is by looking at the projects in two dimensions. You want to assess them in terms of the impact on the business, right? If we're able to achieve this, which ones would make the most difference? Which would, save the most money? Which would generate the most new revenue or whatever it may be? Which ones would have the most impact on the business is one dimension. And second of all, you're going to look at them in terms of, well, how easy is it to implement this idea? And that really becomes the process that we use. Out of a session like that, when I'm facilitating sessions with a customer, we might get 10 or 15 ideas on the board. And you'll see pretty quickly, some of those fall off as just sort of, maybe futuristic kinds of things that you might want to do. But you kind of get down to the 3 or the 4 that are going to offer the most value and be the easiest to implement, right? You can, there's various ways, again, where you can kind of, in a meeting, map those out or surface those. Once you've got those lists of contenders, then the other thing that you can do is you can start to see, sometimes there's interdependencies between them, right? You could say, okay, like these are all good, but I realize that if I start by, with this one particular project, that's really going to put a lot of infrastructure in place. It's really going to make delivering the next 2 or 3 very simple. So it's really that prioritization based on the value, based on the ease of implementation, and then realizing, what are the contingencies and what are the ones that I can most effectively do most quickly.
Okay. And I think that it's important for organizations to not just have like one big AI initiative, but kind of like how you described, be able to kind of continuously assess where to kind of initiate AI projects and for what reason or for what business results you're looking for. And then, so then what you have is you have an organization that's able to continuously experiment and then scale whatever works throughout the organization. So for organizations that have kind of reached this point in their AI journey, more importantly, how do they continue to assess the full effectiveness of their conversational AI solution, and what does success exactly look like?
Well, I would say, I mean, just at a high level, the most important thing you do, you just wanted to make sure that you define your success and the metrics that you're tracking in a business context and not strictly like a technical context. Now, with conversational AI, that's actually fairly straightforward. As I said, a lot of these are support-oriented kinds of applications, all right? So then you can look at things like the number of calls or the number of contacts that are deflected from human agents to an automated assistant. What's my first call resolution percentage, for example? You may also want to track customer satisfaction. How well are my customers adapting to or using the systems that we're putting in place. All of those have a business context. Now, support, again, I don't want to focus exclusively on support, even though there's, that's a big center of gravity for conversational AI. But let's just say, for example, if it were, some kind of sales concierge, you go on a website and you have an assistant that's going to help you find the right product or answer, provide product information or recommendations or whatever it may be. You might look at your, again, business metrics. What are the conversion rates? Like conversion rates being percentage of the people that actually buy something. What's the percentage of subscription of subscriptions that get activated? What's my average order size? These are just examples, but I would just say in terms of success is business success. Success is not technical success. And I say that just as a way of differentiating, because sometimes, again, people ask me this question and say, how can I tell if my assistant is working correctly or whatever? And then they'll focus in on, I don't know, like just, technical kinds of questions, like, the percentage of questions that my assistant understood, or the percentage that the assistant didn't understand. Now, those aren't bad metrics, right? I mean, those are things that you have to be aware of, but they're not the kind of metrics that define success ultimately or sustain success. So that's one thing. The other thing I would say is that even if you are, let's say that you do want to measure the performance or the capability of the assistant that you're creating, even then, like all of your evaluation should be in a business context or a functional context that impacts the business. And it's probably best if I just give an example of that for what I mean. Let's just say I want to have an assistant, to provide customer support. And let's say, for example, that I'm going to do it over the speech channel, over the phone. I have an automated voice assistant. Well, a lot of times when customers are evaluating that, they're going to, when they think of, well, how well is it working? They have a tendency to focus on a technical characteristic. In this case, I'm talking like, let's say speech recognition, right? If I have a voice assistant, it's got to be able to recognize my speech. And so they'll focus on things like word accuracy rate or word recognition rate. Does it recognize 90% of my words or 95? By the way, I think human speech recognition is around 92% or something like that. But is it 60%, 80%? And they'll really focus on and say, well, like I've tested it, I've benchmarked it, I'm at 70%, I need to get to 75%. And maybe you do, maybe you don't. I mean, I'm just using this as an example because a better measurement would be like, how well does your assistant actually recognize the type of request that your customer is making? Because in this particular case, it's not really necessary that the assistant get 100% accuracy of every word that I speak. It just has to know what question I'm asking, what information I'm offering so that it can provide the response that's necessary. And so that would be an example of, even in the context where I'm looking for a particular performance measurement, that I want to make sure that the thing that I'm measuring actually has an impact on the business effectiveness of the thing that I've put together. But bottom line is focus on business metrics and business results, not on technical KPIs.
Okay. Well, Doug, you've really kind of walked us through the A through Z's of how an organization can get started, kind of determine what the building blocks are, determine what the use cases should be to target, as well as kind of overcoming the obstacles that organizations most commonly go through, as well as how to continuously assess and continually build projects within the enterprise. So I really appreciate you spending time with us today and sharing your wisdom from your experience with conversational AI, and we'd love to chat again sometime soon.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Omar. My pleasure. And good luck to all our customers out there that are getting started on projects like this.
All right. Take care, Doug.
All right. Take care.
Wow, Omar, hats off to you. That was a really great interview. I'm so glad that we had Doug to walk us through how an organization should approach conversational AI, directly from his own experiences.
Oh yeah, it was definitely a privilege to have him on the episode, and we really hope the audience found this helpful as well. So now to recap our episode, we've now gone through 2 use cases with the IT help desk and the HR help desk to help companies looking to start with conversational AI.
Not to mention we covered 2 additional external use cases to help bring direct impact to your business through customer-facing channels like your website, your social media, your mobile apps, or even a cognitive call center.
That's right, but it doesn't end there, because in our next episode, we're going to be talking about how to enhance your conversational AI by leveraging further insights through AI search.
Please join us for our next episode in 2 weeks, where we'll dive into AI search with Watson Discovery. We'll be exploring even more use cases and interviewing another AI expert.
Thank you for joining What's Up, Watson. Please stay tuned, and that's a wrap.